Joe,
Here.
John,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Jim,
Here.
Alex,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
Jen,
Here.
I am here. Mike,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
Peter. Peter? You know if Peter's here?
Pete's here.
He's here, but he's muted.
Okay.
Pete, you're muted.
And
You're
Mary.
muted. Unmute yourself.
Pete, you're muted. There you go.
I'm
Peter?
here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can, yes. Mary,
Here.
great. We're all here.
All right. At this point, I will turn the meeting over to the superintendent for the presentation of her proposed budget for 2021 to 2022.
Very much, Greg. Appreciate it. At this point, can I ask everybody to please mute yourself during this time? We're going to go through the presentation. And obviously, if you have any questions or things that we're going to be able to talk about and explore, we will be able to talk about those when we are in our regular board meeting. But at this point, this is our opportunity to showcase what is at this time the superintendent's budget. That said, do we have, I just want to make certain that we have Ben Allen on. So Ben, can I ask you if you could please present the budget presentation? Thank you very much. So I'm going to start off with our good evening and thank you for attending this presentation. This again is the superintendent's budget for the 2021-2022 school year. I appreciate the time of our Board of Education members, our town selectmen, administrators, staff, and our community members. My name is Megan Bennett and I'm the superintendent here in Region 12 Schools. And I'm going to be presenting tonight with our Director of Finance, Nicole Grant. So I want to say that we also are represented tonight with our Region 12 administrative team as we showcase what is going to be our request to the board for next year's budget. I've kept the same structure as in years past because I'm not looking to distract anybody with the structure or create something new. I want to make certain that you can follow our budget story as a year-to-year continuation. We promise transparency in our budgeting process so we can allow our taxpayers to be informed consumers of the education system that they support. We are going to continue to deliver on that promise. So I'm going to start this presentation with what most people want to know about, and it is the number that you all wait for. But I also want to draw to your attention that we have two numbers tonight. So the first and most important number is the fact that we are asking for a 1.64 increase over the 2020-2021 budget. But you're also going to notice that my actual fiscal year budget is for a total of $23,986,637. That is what it is going to take to run Region 12 schools. However, that is not the amount we are going to be asking our taxpayers for. The amount that we are looking to take to referendum in this proposed budget would be the $23,183,060. And that is where we showcase the 1.64% increase. But again, we never want to mislead anybody. So I want to make certain you know what is our total budget, how we're going to allot this spend, and to also recognize that the revenue from our Agriscience is going to offset our request that we put out to the public this year. So with that said, can I please have, Ben, can you flip the next slide? Thank you. So you're going to see what is our vision and our mission. And this we have never faltered from. I share this vision with you because this is our commitment and our promise to our communities on how we educate our children. And this pandemic may have altered how we deliver on this promise. But I can also share with you, it has been our leading principles on how we operate day in and day out. I put in red that building a collaborative learning environment, I think that is the part that we've struggled with the most this year. A lot of what we had to do had to be done through independent silos so our children could be protected and healthy. But it does not change the fact we do want our children to be collaborative. We do want them to be partners in their education. We want our children to remain involved in the educational community while still honoring that social distance at this time. We know that our children recognize that this year, part of being collaborative has been their civic duty in order to promote and support public health. So now our new focus is our efforts to regain the balance that we've lost a little this year. Ben, can you switch slides? So before the pandemic, the teachers were working alongside with our Director of Curriculum and Instruction and the building administrators to update our curriculum. And with a particular focus on enduring understandings, essential questions, and standards. We have been aggressively updating the foundational documents of our district. And during the spring, all curriculum efforts had to come to a halt in 2020 so that energies could be given to the remote learning. Because of the fact that we weren't able to truly secure our foundation and structure, we weren't able to then shift to the next part of our plan, which was shifting to assessment. That said, this continues to be part of our plan. So looking at a delay versus a cancellation. The multi-age initiative that we were planning for this school year was shelved. And at this time, we are not looking to do a whole school multi-age option at Booth Free because the enrollment has swelled and dual grade level combination is no longer appropriate for the whole school. We did shift our STEM teacher this year to the second grade position in order to cover and allow for the singleton safe grade level classrooms we provided. So our multi-age had to change plans. We did have students who were slated for the 9th grade Agriscience program that did make the decision not to attend Chippewa this year. And so we did see a slight decline in our children that were being sent to Chippewa at the start of this year. Additionally, when we looked at our continuation for the tuition in option, this was in direct contrast to our Agroscience enrollment hesitation. We actually saw a large demand and had to introduce a wait list for students who were seeking a tuition in option at our schools. We did have the ability to reduce the outside consultants by utilizing our internal capacities, and that has been an effort that has happened over multiple years. We are building our teachers so they can rely on one another in our professional communities from within. Additionally, other updates we had was that the referendum that we were looking to hold last year ended up changing because we did not know what the fiscal forecast was before us. So what we made the decision to do is to core the roof every 6 months and create a monitoring system to make certain that our systems were not failing on the roof. We made the decision at the board level that a ban would be sought under the motion for the $39 million referendum approval that occurred when we were doing the Agriscience and Science Lab approval. That we will address a little bit deeper as we continue into this presentation. And we did talk about having the HVAC rooftop units done at Chippewa. And I can say it was very serendipitous in our timing. We were able to achieve that in the summer of 2020, which allowed for better ventilation this year as we moved into having in-person learning in the fall. Ben, can you flip slides? So continuing and the enhancements that we promised last year, we said we would run Lego robotics at elementary school. We were not able to do that. It was delayed. We had put in to have a new math program for kindergarten through 2nd grade that we were able to accomplish in the fall. We had wanted to add in breakfast clubs to allow for some academic supports to start our school days. Due to COVID restrictions, we were not able to provide that service because we were not able to combine multiple grade levels. So in an effort for safety, that was delayed. Our building substitutes for the elementary school, we had some intermittent success with that, but we did recognize that was something that was a problem, trying to secure the substitutes. We found a lot of the teachers early in the fall, the demand for certified teachers really scooped up a lot of the candidates that otherwise would have been considered for this role. We were able to provide the early college experience for biotechnology and the environmental science. And we were able to provide a 0 period at Chippewa. And that 0 period allowed our students in taking a PE class first thing in the morning before first period to open up more scheduling options. This allowed for more flexibility in their time, and they could really design their high school experience with more options available to them. Ben, you want to switch slides? And as you can see on this entire slide, the efficiencies that we promised that we were seeking in our last budget were able to be accomplished. And I think we're now seeing that we're able to carry those savings year to year. By utilizing the leasing of technology, not only will we be able to have the most current devices, we will be able to avoid having the peaks and valleys of our budget for the big purchase and rather keep a steady constant of regularly recycling our technology equipment. The print shop at Chippewa, which is being done in conjunction with Agriscience, utilizing bulk ordering to leverage some cost savings, as well as allowing for more budget controls at the local level, having our principals be able to design their budget and really hold true to their own cost savings. So again, in an effort to just mirror what was shown last year, we want to show what was done. Ben, can you please switch slides? So coming into our new school year, it really is about regaining our balance. We need to find a way to make certain that we are preparing our students, securing ground, because we're going to have to accelerate the learning. We're not going to say that we stop this year. Look, can I stop and make certain that everybody's muted at this time?
Are you muted?
Thank you. I apologize. But we're not going to say that we stopped the learning this year, but we definitely had to reestablish our firm ground as we discovered that there's a lot of recovery that's needed. We're looking both curricularly as well as students and what they were able to take advantage of, because as we shifted from remote learning back to in-person learning, we recognized that there were shifts that occurred for our students that we needed to accommodate for. So when you hear information about our stabilization, you're not going to hear about new programs. What you're going to hear about is us pushing a curriculum forward. You're not going to hear about us just looking to remediate. It is looking to figure out how do we pick those power standards and leverages that help us focus and push our students forward through the pandemic. We are not designing our school for a 2019 school district. We want to make certain that we are taking all the learning that happened during 2020 and help push us forward. And so the pandemic taught us how to use technology better. The pandemic taught us how to communicate better. And so we're certainly going to utilize this to improve our future. So Ben, if I can have you flip to the next slide. So moving forward, what are we doing? It looks like at some point, what we're looking to do is, as conditions allow, we are looking to start to close the distance. When it's safe to no longer have social distance or it not needed to be 6 feet any longer, we look forward to introducing collaboration. We want to recapture some of those learning spaces that we've lost during this pandemic. We have had to redesign places in our schools, such as the mall, our cafeteria, our auditorium. Those all became learning centers that allowed us to space out, but we have not been optimally using them at this time. And so we're looking forward to being able to capture space and capture learning opportunities. Our staff continues to avail themselves to the vaccine at this time. And we know that the vaccine is going to be available for children as young as elementary age by the end of December. And so we know that there's some hope that's out there as we continue to try to, as a community, handle for what COVID is going to be and what it is today. But as that is happening, we look for opportunities we can safely provide to the students. So it also looks like academic acceleration. It is necessary that we have to push our students along. We don't have the luxury of having a lost year. We have to make certain that we kept up for any learning that learning opportunities that may have been lost, and we carry those forward. And that takes concentrated effort. And so with the firm foundation in our curriculum under the direction of Dr. Teresa DeBrito, we are currently revising some of our finals at Chippewa, recognizing that our students did not have a typical year. This does not mean they didn't learn as much, but it does mean that we had to compact concepts. We had to look for opportunities to push the learning a little bit further and a little bit faster so that we students didn't lose learning. However, as we look at our standardized tests, as we look at our internal tests, we recognize that our students are not performing this year the way they did last year. And we have to use that information to design for how we move forward. One of the biggest thrills that I'm saying is in this budget is bringing back the REACH opportunity. This is incredibly important to our entire region. I am worried about our children's kindergarten readiness going into next year. So we are going to be utilizing some of the funding that is provided to us. Our ESSER funding will be for summer kindergarten readiness camps for our incoming kindergarteners. So we're looking to provide this service free of charge for incoming kindergarteners to help with routine setting, letter and number recognition, socialization, early reading and writing skills. We recognize it's a short period of time, but it is really our goal and our hope to get our students back into REACH, making certain that they have those opportunities that are rich as our young learners get to socialize education. And that is something that was missing this year. Additionally, we are going to try to put the transportation back in for REACH into my proposal. Our facilities are going to get a great deal of attention. We've looked at some shelved projects and we're seeking to address large projects set forth in our 5-year plan. Don O'Leary is going to be incredibly busy, but in all of these efforts, what it will mean is that if we can do some of these large scale repairs, we will have a lower upkeep cost because we're not constantly trying to limp through with systems that have been failing. When we're looking at efficiencies, Nicole Grant continues to seek opportunities to reduce costs with bulk ordering. I have to give a huge thank you to our main office secretaries and business department who found reserves of material, as well as efficiently and effectively using the bulk ordering system to achieve the same purchases, but now with greater savings. These savings translate into bigger opportunities for education and also savings for our taxpayers. Ben, can you switch slides? So now we kind of get into what is happening as a summary across the board in our budget categories. You're going to see the change in each category between the 2020-21 school year and the 2021-22 school year. As you can see, our personnel and salaries did increase by 5.66% over last year. This cost absorbs additional staffing as well as contractual increases. Taking a look at our benefits, which increased 2.8%. Within this, you will find we did have some healthcare savings, but we did have to increase our HSA contributions. We saw an uptick in unemployment costs, as well as some of the costs that we are able to shift by making our paraprofessionals, 10 of them, benefit eligible. Under our 300 purchase line item, you actually see a savings in that. And this savings is a direct result of the leasing efforts to help control the costs in this line. So we did see the savings that we were hoping for last year in this year's budget. The 400 series, you will also see another savings. This line includes our buses, our facilities upkeep, but it also is going to be focusing on some of those large repairs, thus reducing some of the maintenance costs for the district. A big savings group came out of the 500 series, but to say what went down in the 500 went up in the 600s. So when we look at all of this, our building administrators and department directors were asked to start this budget by coming in with a 5% reduction in their supply costs. Even as we controlled that spend, we did see in the 600 series that we had an uptick in price in electricity, oil, and gas. Additionally, we did have to put in some dollars to prepare for COVID supplies. We don't know what the forecast of next year is going to be, so we need to make certain that we are preparing ourselves for whatever COVID may throw at us. So the cost is down within those two line items. Looking at our 700 series, this one with the 121% increase is where you're going to find our capital facilities costs. This line is increasing because of the facilities projects that we will be addressing. And specifically, we will be looking at the repair to the Burnham roof. And that cost can be found in that series. And lastly, the dues and debts. Last year, we saw the Agriscience and Science Lab debt service kick in. And now we're going to start to see it steady and stabilized across the years. So that's where you see. And as you can see, the difference between the entire budget increase, what I asked for last year and what we need for this year, would actually be a 5.2% increase had it not been for the revenue offset that we will be discussing as we continue to look at my budget. Ben, can I have you go to the next slide, please? So the major factors that are driving up our budget right now. The employee increase, which includes contractual increases between 2.5 and 3%, as well as the addition of 2 teachers, a custodian, and a data specialist. The cost of oil for number 2 for our supplies and services will be up 10%. As I said, oil, gas, electricity, and recognizing that a lot of the service costs for some of our outside contractors have increased. We will continue to try to negotiate for better costs, but we also know what we've been seeing in our estimates. For our building repairs, this number will include the cost of a roof and gutter system at Burnham, as well as fire equipment at Chippewa. And our fourth driving factor is the 1-year band cost that is going to be wrapped into our permanent bond financing cost. I want you to note when you look at the total increases that happen with these 4 drivers alone is $1,409,697. That said, we have been able to control for costs. And we are looking at having a referendum that is above last year's cost at only $374,666. Ben, can I have you go to the next slide, please? So these are some of the personnel changes that I had talked about in the last driving costs, and where we see that personnel increases are going up. What we are looking to do is satisfy the completion of the Agriscience program. Currently, we have a 0.4 custodian. We would be looking to move that by an increase of 0.6 to a full-time custodian to support the additional square footage for the Agriscience program. We would be looking for a district data specialist. One of the things that we are finding is that our work within our own information system needs to have the attention of one person who is managing our Power School system, is managing our data warehouse, is able to produce for us the information that we can make concrete decision on. This would include pulling state reporting for us and really being able to help us have information that is clean and accurate so we can make the best decision for our district. Our additions include 2 teachers. The first recommendation is for the 4th and final Agroscience teacher at Chippewa. When we began this program and we looked at our business model, we were going to have 4 full-time teachers to make certain we're able to implement at full capacity. We are currently running at 3 teachers and recognize next year we need to add the 4th. And also in looking at what our enrollment is looking like in our projections, we will need to make certain we add another section at Washington Primary. We currently have 2 sections of first grade that do sit at Washington Primary. The difference is we currently have REACH teachers who have been performing the duty of teaching first grade and kindergarten this year. And with the restoration of REACH, we would then need to make certain we add a first grade teacher at Washington Primary School. With these additions and trying to control costs, we are looking to have 2 reductions this year. The reduction of 1 clerical position and a reduction of 1 maintenance position. As we're taking a look at what we're able to do with workloads and looking at the distribution of work, we feel that this reduction would be appropriate. There is an adjustment that we will be also seeking. We are working with our paraprofessional unit in order to shift. We currently have 25 part-time paraprofessionals. What we're looking to do is shift those 25 people into 10 full-time paraprofessional positions and then have 7 part-time paraprofessional positions. The goal of this is to allow for not only more continuity for our students, but also to allow some continuity of staff, recognizing that we want people who are going to have longevity. We want to make certain that we provide opportunities for full-time positions, and this is an effort to do just that. Ben, can you switch to the next slide, please? We are seeking some program improvements. As I mentioned to begin this presentation, we are not looking for huge program overhauls. We want to make certain that we are stabilizing ourselves next year. So part of the stabilization is recognizing when some parts of our building do not have the functionality that we need. And within that, our middle school science lab currently does not have the wattage needed in order to execute on some of the science lab experiments that need to be done. And when we look at how many times we have to shift positions, or we've blown fuses, or we have not been able to perform the experiments and had to shortchange our students on an educational opportunity, for $15,000, we are able to make the necessary changes within that middle school classroom so we can actually have a functional science lab within the classroom. Another addition that we are looking to have is the Fontes and Pinnell reading support at middle school. We currently use the Fontes and Pinnell intervention support at our elementary level, and we feel that our students, the support is needed to extend into their time at Chippewa. We would like to continue to have them utilize a program that was successful at the elementary level And by investing in Chippewa, it's no longer Chippewa having to borrow from the elementary schools. They can actually run the program and be able to support their students in their reading needs. And the last program improvement, which I feel is it's a little bit of a blemish on us. The cafeteria system is called the NutriKids software system, and it supports our cafeteria purchases and sales. This system was last updated in 2008. And the version that we're currently running is no longer supported by the company. So in order for us to make certain that we are up to date, that we have a program that will track our purchases, sales, inventory, we need to upgrade our system in order to do this. So we are looking to shift to the Mosaic software system, which is just the new name brand for the system that we've already been using for NutriKids. So it is one that is a program improvement, but it is necessary for program stability. Ben, can you switch to the next slide, please? So I also began this presentation talking about the two numbers. And I talked about what is my total budget versus where I'm going to be asking for referendum. And I'd like to be able to explain this, but that offset in cost between what it's going to take to operate our budget and what we're going to be able to ask our taxpayers for and still run a whole program, I'm looking to explain in these next couple of slides. So Ben, can you switch that over? So I want to start with the statement that Agriscience is paying off. Because of the design that we had talked with our selectmen going into last year, in which the Agroscience revenue would come directly to the school district, it would not have to be something that we are seeking from our taxpayers. We're able to use it in our operating budget, and therefore I do not need to ask for the additional funding. So currently, the referendum request is at $23,183,060. That means that we'd be asking for a 1.64% increase over last year's budget. That is what we need for our taxpayers. That is what we are going to bill the towns for. Our Agriscience anticipated revenue is $803,000. Let's try that again. $803,577 is what we're anticipating for our revenue from Agriscience alone. So that offsets what is the superintendent's budget, which gets us to our referendum number. So we are going to be utilizing the Agriscience revenue to offset the amount that we would be asking for. The state pays for the Agriscience tuition in arrears, but the district pays for our students the years of service. So we are trying to make certain that we are matching up how that pay is going to be actualized. Because what happens is the state pays you for the following October. So we have to wait a full year for that state grant to kick in. But the sending districts send you the money the year that you are educating their students. So we are constantly piecing those things together. And we're going to make certain that we showcase that a little bit more in our next slides. But it should be noted that Region 12 is issuing back to the towns $1,039,777 this month. Included in that amount that we are returning to the towns is $948,783 in tuition alone. Because of the program that is provided by Region 12 schools, our revenue from tuition is almost $1 million. When we provided this presentation last year, we had anticipated $750,000. We've exceeded that expectation. And again, this is now monies that is being returned to the towns. The way that Agriscience is, we don't even need to ask for that money when going to the towns. Ben, the next slide, please. And I'm going to ask that our Director of Finance, Nicole Grant, speak to this slide. Nicole, are you able to? Want to make certain that you're on.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can. Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Megan. So this is what we like to call year to year now our Agriscience by the numbers slide. And you can see that it's the 19-20 year is reflected, the current year we're in year 3, which is our 21-22 budget year that we're discussing. The 19-20 year, the expenses have been updated to actual expenses. With the 2021 year, we've updated those numbers to expenses as we know them currently. And that brings us to year 3. In year 3, we'll bring in our 4th and final teacher, and we'll move the custodial position to full-time. This will bring the last necessary staffing additions, and you can see that staff is going to start to stabilize over the next 2 years, which are years 4 and 5. With 2 years of operating, we're able to have a better experience of expenses. So we've been able to tighten up other costs of the program, and we'll continue to do that as the program goes from year to year. This year, the percent of the expenses of Agriscience on the total budget are 5.65%, which is only an uptick from last year of about 0.4%. So you can see that stabilization that I'm referencing starting to occur. Ben, if you could switch to the next slide, please. So this is the Agroscience model that we have been talking about the last couple of years. And we have updated this as well with year 1 and year 2 actual numbers of enrollment. We have projected out year 3 enrollment numbers, which are based on our acceptance letters, which have been issued. And we've made minor adjustments throughout the years based on those enrollment numbers. If you combine this updated model with the previous slide that we showed you, you can see that we maintain, which we have been saying year to year, that our break-even point will be next year in year 4. So even as we have gathered together some actual experience of the program, we're still on track for what we projected in the business model. I think at this point in my presentation last year, I had said that it's gratifying to know that we're reaching those milestones, and we continue to do so. So for those of us who've worked really hard in this program, including all of you, I think it's really great to see that we've been able to stay on track with our projections and our business models. What we've done with this slide to try to make the revenue easier to understand is if you look at the bright blue highlight of year 2, where the state grant funds come in, that $340,200 is what the state will pay us next year based on this year's enrollment. That's the arrearage revenue that Megan was just referencing a couple of slides ago. And then our sending towns will be paying us $552,663. So those two numbers combined would be projected revenue for next year of $892,863, which you can see over on the left of this slide. So what we've done is taken into consideration 10% attrition because we're not sure about acceptances. Although we've issued acceptance letters, we're not sure how many of the kids will actually be in seats come September. So that's how we developed the $803,600 credit against the budget. And of course, if the number comes into the 892 that we projected, that those are additional funds that will be returned to the towns. Can you flip to the next slide then? And I'll turn it back over to Megan for this.
Thank you. And I thank you, Nicole, for keeping a very complicated Agriscience model very digestible, because we know that it is not straightforward, and we want to make certain that people understand how we came up with the numbers and also what we're providing for our own safety net to make certain that we're not over-promising anything. So this slide here is the investments we would like to make in our buildings. The total amount of the repairs that will be conducted for next year is approximately $3.6 million. This cost is broken down into the three categories that you see before you. The first category is our elementary funding. Every year we put $100,000 aside, and we are to utilize that money for repairs and upkeep on our elementary schools. And as you can see, things that we're looking to do is we're looking to improve some HVAC controls. I think as COVID has taught us the importance of ventilation, temperature flow, and making certain that we've got better controls on that. We're looking to improve LED lighting. We want to make certain that we are also being environmentally conscious. We would like to put in some more security hardware upgrades for each of our elementary schools. Improve some of the clapboard siding that's at Booth, providing for the new sign, repairs to the front of Burnham, carpet, art floors, and teacher room. Teacher room escape windows. So when you look at all of these things, this is not included in our budget. This is something that we already have earmarked and we are ready to execute on, but that's not falling into this budget. Additionally, you're going to see in the next column, this is what the board had approved at our meeting earlier this year, in which we know that we need to replace the boiler at Chippewa. We did have an incident this year in which we had to evacuate the building because of an issue with the boiler. And this was something that was on our original referendum to go to, when I talked about that $4.5 million referendum that we had to shelf because of COVID. Doesn't mean that the problems went away. And so recognizing that the board had approved for that. Additionally, the restoration of the top coat. We have talked ad nauseum about that roof at Chippewa and waiting until we can get our money's worth out of the current roof, but recognizing if we wait too long, we are going to have to replace the entire roof at a much higher cost than if we can just restore the top coat. We have done our due diligence. We have cored the roof every 6 months, and we are certainly at the time now. We need to execute on changing the roof and restoring that top coat. We are looking to introduce perimeter heating. We're utilizing it in our Agriscience program, and so to bring that all the way around Chippewa proper. And with that comes the replacement of exterior windows. We also are looking to add a district maintenance garage. We have seen a lot of our maintenance equipment fall into ill repair because it has been left out to the elements. So recognizing the need to care for our investments in equipment. So adding that into our project list for next year, as well as a water tank. It says replace $10,000 gallon tank. It is a water tank that we're looking to. So all of that we already know. Those two columns are what we've already said and are making a commitment to make that change for and to invest our dollars with. The next part is what I am seeking within this budget. I am looking to put in a capital facilities request to replace the slate roof at Burnham. We recognize that the Burnham roof has been failing. We are not going to replace with another slate roof that we recognize is costly. We want to make certain we're doing something that is likened, but it is not slate. Additionally, while we're doing that, we have to replace the gutters that are at Burnham, and in another repair and making certain that we are keeping our children safe, it is to replace the smoke detectors at Chippewa Valley School. So those three projects are what you are going to find within this budget. And Ben, can you flip to the next slide, please? So when we look at what happens with that capital facilities, what I just shared with you, it does have an estimated cost of $450,000 that we are looking to put into this budget to make certain that we are keeping up with our elementary school as well as keeping up with the safety. Our director of facilities has been working with the Finance and Operation Committee to create a 5-year facility plan to not only repair, but also to keep up with the care of the buildings. We created a plan to utilize the 1% non-reoccurring fund as well as the elementary CNR to comprehensively address these repairs. So everything that we are doing, the part that we need to bring all together is bringing this part of the 5-year plan to completion, which would include within our budget. And Ben, if you can, to the next slide. So the facilities repairs, and this is something that our board had approved in a meeting earlier this year. We are looking to include a bond ban for the repairs. And this one you can see again, as I talked about in that middle column, it was the restoration of the top coat. So again, pulling in that Chippewa roof, as well as all these repairs occur at Chippewa with the addition of the district maintenance garage. The total cost of these repairs in estimates is over $3 million. Next slide, Ben, please. And at this point, I feel it's important that Nicole explains how we are looking to pay for that $3 million ban.
Thanks, Megan. So what we would like to do in order to accomplish the repairs that Megan just discussed was we will seek what's called a non-disclosure ban. You may recall that we have to renew the $4 million Agriscience ban on an annual basis until the state of Connecticut releases our construction holdback. That ban comes due April 9th of this year. So we would coordinate the renewal of that ban with an additional ban of $3 million. And we would do what's called non-disclosure. It's just not as much of a heavy lift for our towns to have to complete all of the paperwork to go to permanent bond financing. It also allows us to get the money into the district now so that we can start to work on these repairs over the summer expeditiously. And what will happen is gives us the time to gather our RFPs, to get the contracts in place, to get the work started. And then we will have the firm estimates of the costs so that we can go to permanent bond financing in the fall. So what we will be seeking is a $3 million ban, which we have budgeted the cost for that ban in this budget to be $80,000. And what that $80,000 includes is not only the cost of the interest on the ban, which will be a 7-month interest term, it also includes the costs to do the permanent bond financing in November. Permanent bond financing can be costly. We do have rates working in our favor right now. We expect that the interest rate on the $3 million ban for the 7-month period will be less than 1%. And like I said, we will be looking to close that very soon at the end of this month. So what's going to happen is when we refinance that short-term ban in November to permanent bond financing, the first debt service payment on that new bond will be in the 22-23 year budget. So we won't see that debt service for another year. So it will take effect in the 2022-2023 budget. Can you change the slide, Ben?
Thank you, Nicole. So as you've heard, a lot of the focus of this budget is making certain that our facilities are being brought up to date, are safe for our students, and additionally, completing some of our promises for providing the full implementation of our Agriscience program, as well as making certain that we are adjusting for the population shifts that we are seeing before us because of the pandemic, and also to make certain that we are stabilizing where we can. So the part that everybody wants to know about then is, based on the superintendent's proposed budget, what does that mean for each town based on their membership? And so what you're going to see here is what the anticipated amount would be to each one of our 3 towns. As you note, the above is the membership percentage. What that is based on how many students we have enrolled on October 1. We use that to calculate the percentage that each town pays. So whereas Bridgewater takes their population of students against our total amount of students from Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington, that determines what is their amount to pay against our total request. So when you look at what we're seeing in the differences, Bridgewater has an $80,000 increase for next year compared to this year. Roxbury saw a significant enrollment increase this year with the population of students, and therefore their increase is over $500,000. And Washington, we saw a decrease at the $245,000 mark. So again, as we're looking at, and we talked about the overall budget is a 1.64% increase, we recognize and we want to share with you how that impacts each one of our member towns. Ben, next slide, please. So as I've said, that right now we have used the $23,183,060 when we've calculated all of our amounts, as that is what we are seeking from our taxpayers. I speak on behalf of our administration, staff, and students as I thank our communities of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington for the support that you gave to our schools. Not that just this year under incredible circumstances, but our ongoing support and partnership that we have. So I'm going to repeat myself because this is a statement that I say often, but there is no better place to have a pandemic than in our 3 towns. We have protected and supported one another. This year, Region 12 schools did what others could only dream. We provided in-person learning opportunities throughout the school year, and this only could happen because of our communities. We provided the most optimal education possible for our students, and we want to continue to reflect and promote the communities that we serve. Our educational efforts build our communities, improve your home sales, and strengthen our towns. Our tuition in requests, along with the increase in population, is because of our community and our schools connection. Your support allows us to promote these wonderful towns that we get to serve. Then the next slide. So I want to thank you all for your time, your consideration for the superintendent's budget request to support our schools by raising next year's budget request to our taxpayers 1.64%. Again, that we are asking for people to consider is $23,183,060. I thank you, I appreciate you, and at this time, I conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Megan. All right, at this point, that's the last item on our agenda. We will undertake discussion of this budget in our regular meeting to follow this. So at this point in time, unless anyone objects, I would declare this meeting adjourned at whatever time it is.
7:26.
7:26, yes, 7:26 p.m. We're adjourned, and we will now, we've adjourned the special meeting of the Board of Education, and we'll now go on to our regular meeting. So I would like to, at 7:26, call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of Region 12. And I would ask Lisa, our secretary, to call the roll.
Oh, Lisa, you're muted. Can I unmute you?
Okay, sorry. Joe,
Here.
John,
Still here.
Greg,
Still here.
Jim,
Here.
Alex,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
Jen,
Here.
I'm still here. Michael,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
Peter. Peter, if you're here, unmute yourself.
Pete, you're muted.
Is he still here?
Yeah, he's still here, but he's muted. He's talking, but he's not.
Okay.
Pete,
I
mute.
can't see him.
I did it. I'm here.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. And Mary. Mary,
Hang on.
is she here? Okay.
I'm
got
here.
it. Okay, thank you.
All right. At this point in time, I would like to open the floor to public comment on agenda items. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand so I can identify you for the record. I do not see anyone raising their hand. Am I mistaken? Is there some member of the public who would like to address the meeting on an item on tonight's agenda?
Yes, I would.
Okay, go ahead. This is Mr. William Murphy.
Yes, this is William Murphy. I'm the president of the custodial maintenance and kitchen workers. And I just wanted to talk about the budget on how we're investing in the buildings and maintenance, and we're removing a maintenance person from a position. I'm just wanted to state that I'm kind of disappointed, and I don't even see how it works. And that's all I needed really to say. And I will reach out to, as a resident of Bridgewater, I will reach out to the people on the board from Bridgewater. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If you are not pictured, can you speak and let me know if you would like to address the board? All right, I think that's it for this evening on public comment. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, the board meeting minutes of February 22nd, 2021. Is there anyone who would like to take those from the consent agenda and discuss them?
I do, Greg.
John?
In the minutes, when Mary talked about the, let me find it. There it is. At the end of Mary's report, the CABE report, she reported on the public hearing, which was held February 16th. That was the public health hearing concerning vaccinations. So the last sentence of those minutes of her paragraph, removing all medical exemptions for vaccines, and that is not the language of the bill. The language of the bill is actually, I'll find it, toggling between screens. Language of the bill is actually to eliminate the non-medical exemption to the immunization requirement for individuals attending public and private schools from pre-kindergarten through grade 12. So it has nothing to do with removing all medical exemptions. It has everything to do with removing the non-medical exemptions.
Actually, what it should say is all but the medical exemptions. And that, yeah, and that would fix what John is saying.
Yeah, that probably was bring it more in line with what the public hearing was about.
Yeah, and that was my recollection that Mary was telling us it was non-medical exemptions that had been removed. So it's, all right.
Greg?
Back.
Yes.
Okay, Greg and Mary. So you would just like the word "but" added into there, removing all but medical exemptions?
John, does that work for you?
I'm not certain that's the language of the bill. I'd prefer the language of the bill would be more accurate for me.
Non-medical exemptions, is that what you said?
Let me reread it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
this is not a correct use of this. The minutes are the minutes. If Mary wants to correct what she said, she can correct it. But this is not a grounds for putting in the correct language of the statute. Mary's report is what it is. If there was an error, she corrected it by adding the word "but." If John wants to make a presentation later and have that in the minutes of this meeting, that's fine. But I just don't see us reworking what was actually said.
Well, I mean, the only question I have is John had some specific language and I wasn't sure whether Mary agreed with it or not. So I would just like to get past that because I think it's an important distinction and I'd like to just get it done and move past it to get this off the agenda. So John, do you have the specific language?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay, John, can you just send that to me?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody?
Sure.
Okay. All right, John, why don't you send the language? Mary, why don't you look at it? If it's a problem, we'll bring it back to, well, we really need to get it done now, I think. If you have the language, John, if not, we'll have to deal with it next meeting.
All right, I have the language right here. Excuse me. To eliminate this is the act, okay? Eliminating the non-medical exemption to the immunization requirement.
Mary, does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay, we'll change it to that. Good, excellent. Let's move on.
Thank you.
All right. Updates on COVID-19. Megan.
Thank you. It has been, I'm going to make certain that I'm presenting my screen, so hold on a moment, please. Okay. So again, as we continue to do, we want to make certain that we look at our own facts and figures, that we are not making assumptions based on fears or on things that are other than what is actually happening within our hallways. So this is our year to date. Again, we have had a couple of student cases of COVID this week at Chicago. But as you can see that our numbers still remain relatively low in comparison with some of our neighboring towns. But cumulatively, again, we do see that we've had a number of students in quarantine at Chicago. The biggest spike of that happening, you know, around the January timeline, but to say that we've really seen it plateau, we've actually had a couple weeks in between of zero. But that as we talk about what is happening and staying one step ahead of COVID, what I'm most proud to present is the staff vaccine status tonight. I really have to applaud our towns of New Milford and Newtown Departments of Health. With our staffs, they both made certain that they were able to secure vaccinations for those who wanted to avail themselves to the vaccine. So tomorrow we will be holding our third vaccination clinic, and the fourth one will be on Wednesday. We have been able to access the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson. The Moderna is the 2-shot series, and Johnson & Johnson is the 1-shot. By the time that we hold our last clinic on Wednesday, 167 Region 12 staff members, bus drivers, coaches, substitutes, and aftercare workers have been able to access our closed clinics. We have put out our last call. Anyone who has wanted to avail themselves to the vaccination has been able to secure it through our closed clinics. So by Wednesday, anyone who wants access has been able to access. Again, our vaccines are accessible, but they are not required at this time. And I need to make certain I say these names out loud. But our Director of Health, Lisa Morrissey for New Milford, jumped in. She actually was brand new to us at the end of February, and she just took the baton and ran with it. And our Newtown Department of Health Director, Donna Colbert, who has helped lead us through this entire pandemic. So again, say that we are incredibly fortunate to be under the partnerships of these people and to know that our staff is taking efforts to make a safe learning environment. I talked about this earlier. You actually saw improved morale when we saw people being able to access this. We had our first access on March 2nd of 50 people, and we started with our para educators, our special education team, our OTs, PTs, people who cannot maintain that 6 feet of distance because our children need hand-to-hand support. We're able to get coverage, and I have to thank our building principals and administrators who provided coverage so they could leave work to get vaccinated to make certain that they were safe. Changes how we operate, changes how we feel. The level of care that our administrators gave to their staff, it's a huge credit to them and who they are and how they serve their staff. So again, I'm going to say such positive things that are happening. I've heard horror stories in other places. Our tale is a positive tale. Additionally, to share with you, unfortunately, as we know that with COVID and when we have our students playing sports and certain risks that we are able to take, unfortunately, we did have to end our boys JV and freshman season early due to mass amounts of quarantine requirements. But I can say we were able to get our children to play. And we know that these are calculated risks. And our boys varsity team is able to continue on. We can get them on the floor. They will, all 5 of them remain on the floor throughout an entire game. But to say that we are continuing to watch for when we have to make shifts and changes in our program. And we did have to make a shift and change in our athletics program due to COVID. So that concludes my updates, and I will accept any questions if people have.
I'm sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Megan, I just wanted to tell you, there's a lot of teachers that I've known for years, and I'm friends with a few of them on Facebook. And I have to say, they were really, really excited to start to get their vaccinations. Very much so. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the email that says everyone has been vaccinated. Thank you.
We are looking forward to a healthier tomorrow. That is for certain.
Okay, anyone else? I don't see anyone, so we'll move on. I'm going to pass on the board chair's report tonight, move on to Megan's report.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to start by saying thank you to our entire Board of Education with the support, again, that you've provided us, allowing us to take some calculated risks where we saw that it was opportune to do so with local health conditions. As you know, the board had made a decision that on April 19th, we will allow use of facilities based on how health conditions are continuing to emerge. And again, I want to thank you for allowing us to put education first, to take care of our kids and provide the opportunities for them before opening up our buildings to others. So your care and support is felt and seen throughout our buildings. I do want to let you know we have been able to capture some good things as far as we made adjustments for spectators. We are allowing our senior parents to attend the few remaining home games we have. We've established senior nights that allow for the celebration of the seniors in their final year as Spartans. Additionally, our cheerleaders have been brought into the senior night for a final chance to display their talents to a live audience. Again, it is just senior parents. They are socially distanced. We've got the spaces. There is no they are not allowed to mix and mingle between the students. So we've really put some optimal safety safeguards in place. Additionally, Chippewa is looking forward to announcing their top 5 ranked seniors. I know that the students will end with a strong finish, and we will be celebrating these students in upcoming board meetings. So look forward to sharing in that announcement with everyone. I also want to let you know, because we see so many things that are changing at the end of the year, the Litchfield County Superintendents Association is not holding their celebration for the Superintendent's Award. They've actually said they are not giving that out. I would like us to continue with that tradition here in Region 12. So just because they do not get a certificate or plaque from Litchfield County Superintendents, I think they should get a plaque from Region 12 schools. So I think we're going to continue to honor our students and those who showcase great character and make certain we highlight and rise above. So it's not about a ceremony that's put on somewhere beyond our borders. It's what we're going to celebrate right here. So we will be continuing to celebrate, even though you may hear of the cancellation through other means. I want to also celebrate our elementary schools and their kickoff for their Read Across America this month. We are encouraging all of our students to increase the volume of their reading. It is important that we're building strong readers, where it's important that our students know the love of books. And so certainly capitalizing on those opportunities. And I know whether they're holding special competitions or the kickoffs, it really is all about reading, and it's a great month to celebrate that. I have no personnel changes to announce tonight, so this concludes my update.
Thank you, Megan. John, do you have anything new for us?
I just have a few comments on the budget, and again, it's I think that we should be cautious about our long-term debt. Although the 80,000 additional for the ban this year doesn't seem that much, but moving forward to 2022, 2023, we're going to be increasing our budget by $342,000 for the next 10 years. When you consider the fact that we currently hold bonding on 11,575,000, some of that is going to be reduced because the state still owes us approximately 3,670,000 toward the priority school construction priority reimbursement. But that'll bring that 11,575,000 down to around 8 million. Let's call it 8 million, 8.25 million. Then we're going to add an additional 3 million to that for the 5 capital facilities projects. So we're going to be carrying an $11.25 million long-term debt for 10 years for the 5 projects, and then an additional when that drops off, we're still going to be carrying 8 million for the next 20 years. I wish there was a way, and I know to borrow from the 1% fund, or to rob the 1% fund is not going to decrease our debt service, our budget by much, dollar for dollar, but I still think we should be a little bit more cautious than trying to carry an $11.25 million debt. When we started out in 2018 with a debt service of a couple of $100,000. So it's just, I don't know where we would turn if we had to seek additional bonding, in the near future. That's all.
All right, thank you, John. The only comment I would make is that unlike many times when a Board of Education carries debt, should the attendance at Agriscience continue, of that, the $8 million that's dedicated to Agriscience has actually got a source of revenue to repay it. And we're now about to come into an era in which we are going to have that program carrying itself and actually producing a surplus. So although we seem to be carrying a large debt, it is offset by an enormous amount of income coming in from tuition, which means that it's really not an $8 million, $11 million debt. It's really the $3 million we're adding to it, because the $8 million has a source of funding other than the taxpayers' wallets. And I think that's important to say. Otherwise, it leaves us with the, with an impression that we are taking on large amounts of debt. Yes, we are, but we have taken on that debt in order to finance a program that pays for itself over the 20 years that we have, and we're now getting into that time. So in any event, I just wanted to add my comment to that. Let's move on.
I semi-agree with you, except for the fact that the state grant reimbursement is not etched in stone. It's not guaranteed year after year. It's currently around 4,200, which is a big improvement from the 2,800 that it was when we originally projected the project. But there is no guarantee on the state grant money.
Well, that's true. There are no guarantees in the world, but the one thing I think we need to do is we need to renew our efforts to work through CABE and our other lobbyists in Hartford to get the state to fund the entire $12,000 for Agriscience, so that we no longer have pressure put on our sending towns to have to worry about how much they're spending on this program. If the state is truly interested in
that may be on the state legislator's plate very soon. I heard a news report today that they're considering, looking at all the vocational schools, let's call it, and contributing equal amounts for each program.
I think it makes sense, because if they're really truly interested in educating children and giving them opportunities, this is the way to do it. Megan.
The bill that is being looked at is the money follows the child, but it's not just Agriscience and not just vocational education. It also is charter schools. So it wraps in a lot of different types of schooling. So it is one to watch, but it is one that also has other factors that are involved in it.
Okay, let's move on to committee reports. Cade, Mary?
I apologize. I also had my vaccination on Friday and I wasn't feeling very well until today. So, but the one thing I wanted to bring out was there's a webinar this Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it's Dispelling the COVID-19 Vaccination Myths webinar. And I thought that might be something that we might want to look at, so that we have up-to-date information about this subject.
Thank you, Barry. Congratulations on getting your vaccine. Despite the fact that I am now eligible, I am still playing the vaccine Hunger Games like everyone else. Let's move on to Curriculum and Educational Programming Committee. Mike.
Sure, and unfortunately we had to cancel our planned committee meeting. So I'm hoping by the next board meeting we can have an update for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mike. We'll look forward to it. Finance and Operations, Alex.
Yes, we had a meeting on the 1st, and the primary focus of the meeting was about being updated on the proposed budget of the superintendent. Nicole also offered some numbers and answers to questions and made clarifications. The 2019-2020 audit will be coming shortly, at which point we can review that and see if it gets board approval. And the third thing we did is we discussed Don's RFPs for the work that we hope to get done this summer. I don't know if Don has got them out yet, but we're envisioning about a 6-week lag before we get firm numbers for those projects. And that is it.
Thank you, Alex. Labor negotiations, Jim?
We had a session last week with the town of Sherman. I think Megan will, I'm not sure if she's going to report on that today or not, but I think we're near the end on that, hopefully, subject to the board's approval. And I've heard that the nurses were negotiating, but it has not started yet. So other than that, there's nothing going on.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. Strategic Long Range Planning Committee, Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention tonight that as you saw in the budget, this is with our marketing hat on, that we're getting a new sign at Booth Free, and we're also looking at getting new signs at Chippewa and at Burnham, based on if we have the funds available. So it would be nice to see some shiny new signs in front of our buildings.
Absolutely. Great news. Keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to new business and updates. Enrollment projections, stability of new residents. Megan, I think that's you.
That is me. So I'm going to share my screen again. So if you'll excuse me for half a minute as I transition us over. So one of the things that I think becomes a moving target is when we talk about our enrollment, and we recognize the variations that occur, not only just because we know that we have residents who have come in to seek shelter from COVID, but we also recognize that our tuition in requests have increased. So I wanted to make certain that the board was aware of some of these shifts of what we're looking at, and give a little context behind some of the conversations we were just having regarding our budget. So in the budget book, and that's in your board packet, Nicole has provided the overview in the pages. And in the first pages of the summary on page 18, I just took out this excerpt because I think one of the things you need to see is our projected enrollment for 2021 is increasing 12.8%. And I want you to know where this number comes from. So I'm going to just show you a little bit about what's happening and what we're watching for our numbers. So as you know, our October 1 enrollment, we had 686 enrollments count. And that was without reach and students opting for homeschooling. So these factors actually did skew our enrollment data when we were comparing ourselves against years past. When you look at not enrolling what would be 47 children into our schools, it really does put an anchor on what happened with the enrollment for this year. So I wanted to let you know there's a couple of rebound potentials that we really need to be watching for next year as we share and showcase what is happening with our enrollment. So the people who were directly impacted by COVID, we had 27. And if you recall, in Prada's report, he had shared that currently we have 33 students who were homeschooled. And of those, only 6 of them were homeschooled before the pandemic. So that meant 27 students who otherwise would have accessed the education through Region 12 made the decision to homeschool. And for our reach, our anticipated enrollment, we were anticipating 52 students. We only enrolled 7 this year because needing to utilize not only the staff, the resources, but also the space, and recognizing too that our students were not going to have the same reach experience given the fact that we really were struggling with how to have collaborative learning opportunities. So when we're looking at this right here, that is 72 students who never entered into our hallways who otherwise would have had it not been for COVID. So when we look at our predictors, not only do you take those 72 that we are hoping now come back into our school system now that we reopen Reach, and hopefully as vaccinations happen, we start to see some of our homeschool children rejoin us at Region 12. But also I want to show you some of our requests that we are seeing that are happening from beyond our 3 towns. So when I looked at last year, in total, we had our enrollment portal open from March to July. During that entire time, we had 30 new tuition and requests during that time. We just opened up our enrollment portal on February 1st. We already have 24 new tuition and requests. We have 33 new Agriscience students from sending towns that we're anticipating, and 11 new Sherman students that are beyond Agriscience. So when we look at right now what I have received in our enrollment portal, in which we have true applications that are beyond our schools, we already have 116 applications in our first 5 weeks. And I think when you look at what that is, number one, that is a huge endorsement for our schools and what is being provided for education. 116 students who have a choice to be educated within the boundaries of their own town are choosing to come to Region 12 schools. And so that was our count as of Friday, because at some point I have to cap it so that way I can make a presentation for you all. But I can tell you that over the weekend, the count continues to climb. And we know that last year we had 30 new applications for tuition in. I was only able to accept 17 of those. And so it really does matter what grade levels that are being asked for, what schools. I was sharing with Kim Gallo earlier today that right now the number one request is 6th grade at Chippewa, is where I have the greatest amount of requests for schools. So I think that really an endorsement of what is being done in our school buildings. I can tell you consistently across all of our schools, we are seeing applications to be part of our school system. And again, a credit to what is out there, but it is also one that as we're planning, and we always talk about the fact that when somebody's tuitioning in, we're only selling the seats on the plane. We are not purchasing another plane. However, when we're looking at new residents, that is where we need to make certain that we are providing the resources in order to educate them. And that is where the request for Washington Primary and an additional classroom has come in. So I wanted to make certain that the board is aware. We recognize there's volatility in these numbers, but it's at least good to give context of how we are arriving at these things and what we're thinking for the future of Region 12.
Julie, you had a question? I'm sorry, Julie, did you have a question? I thought your hand was up.
I did, yes. Is it still New Milford? Does that seem to be the number one town of which the applications are coming from, or is it more diverse at this point?
Nope, it continues to be. New Milford seems to be the biggest enrollment draw, but I can tell you, nope, we are seeing from Woodbury, we are seeing from Bethlehem, we are seeing from Brookfield, sorry, took those things together. Brookfield, we have some from Newtown, so we are seeing from multiple, but yes, I can say that New Milford continues to be our biggest pool.
Okay, thank you.
Megan, this is great news that we are fast becoming the school people want to go to, not just the people that live here, but others. If I got your numbers correctly, next year you're talking about going back over 800 students. It will have been 10 years since we were there. Back in 2012 was the last time we had over 800 students. So this is a good trend line, people, an excellent trend line. And I congratulate you and your staff, Megan, for making this possible.
Well, I congratulate our board for making it possible, but I can say, so the budget, as we factor those things, the budget is factored for 750. Everything beyond that is just tuition revenue considerations, but not going into our ask for operations.
And the obvious question is, we're nowhere near the point at which it causes us an increase in cost by having to engage more people. We're not at that.
we control for that, and that is where wait lists and other factors come into place. So we do have to say no to people sometimes due to specific grade enrollments that may prohibit us from accepting as many as we'd like.
All right, so anyone who is concerned that we were reaching a point where this is not such good news because it's actually increasing our cost, we should not have that concern.
Great.
And you've controlled for that. Excellent. Well, okay, we'll move on to number 2 on new business, which is possible discussion on superintendent's budget for 2021-2022. Mike Sinatra.
Megan, when you were talking about the Agriscience program, I thought for year 3 of the program, you were estimating 132 students.
I'm sorry, I'm turning to the page. I want to make certain that we were, when we had done the original proposal utilizing that, we were expecting at full capacity, it was going to be 139 students when we had 4 years of students across the enrollment. And so right now, 132 is what it would be with 3 years of cohorts in it. So we are above target.
And that was what I was going to question you about, because if my memory served us correctly, when we were looking at approving the Agriscience program way back when, we had this number in mind of 137, I believe it was, that we were hoping to achieve. I think that was, as you mentioned, at the end of year 4. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. That was our anticipation.
And so, you know, that number was obviously at that point just a projection. But I know that many of the people who were advocates of the Agriscience program were saying that we felt that it was a conservative estimate, and that any numbers above that would really start to bring in additional revenue, which again, one of the criticisms of the program when it was in its inception was that was going to be a financial drag on Region 12, not necessarily a source of revenue. It seems like you've already taken that concern off the table.
Yes, you guys have put on a program that has taken that concern off the table. I think our biggest surprise has been the number of students that are from Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington who really wanted to receive an Agroscience education. Those numbers, when we did early projection, we assumed 5 each year. And thus far, our numbers that we had 13 our first year, 15 our next year, and 18 anticipated for the year coming up. So I think that also speaks to the fact that these students are seeing the program in action and want to be part of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of enthusiasm for Agroscience, and the kids are riding that enthusiasm. But I also think that what this board works so hard with in order to get Bethel, in order to make certain that we have strong relationships with our ascending towns, is starting to make certain that we are trending higher than what the business model originally set forth. So
yeah, kudos to you and the rest of Region 12 staff for making that that program the success that it is, and proving all the people who really believed in the program from its inception that we were correct, that it was not going to be an albatross around our neck, but instead would make Region 12 even stronger and even better. One question for you, though, has to do with projected growth. If we're at 132 in year 3, I know one of the concerns from some people, we only wish that this could be a concern, would be too much growth in Agroscience. I think there's a couple concerns. One being that if it gets to the point where we have to start hiring even more additional staff, it could be financially less remunerative than it is currently. So what's that number after year 4 that you're hoping to achieve, Megan?
So year 4 right now, what we have recorded is 167.
Okay.
fully involved.
And you would not need additional staff to support 167.
No, because of the fact of looking at the Chippewa, the students who were already Region 12 students accessing this program, we were planning on educating them anyhow, because they all of our Agriscience students access the core curriculum that we have. So we didn't need to hire extra staff because they were going to be educated in our hallways anyhow. It's just accessing the electives that are part of the Agriscience program. So it's kind of a concentration while still getting the general education that they would get in high school.
Sure.
As far as what we're looking at, sending schools, I think that all estimates that were provided were conservative estimates. I think that, to be quite frank, if other sending towns wanted to reopen up contracts and talk about having more students come to our program, we certainly can absorb more. But it is one to say that we will never compromise the education of what is a Chippewa general education. We don't ever want to have where one program overshadows or
Definitely
impacts our ability to provide a top education for all students. So there is certainly the balance, but I think we are far from shifting that balance.
So that was my next question. If we're growing the Agriscience program, and I think you've got a pretty strong understanding of exactly how much growth you want there. But if we add that
I think Mike froze.
look at,
I think we lost.
you lost me for a second. I'm sorry, my internet connection is not the best. I was saying if we're at 167 with Agriscience and you're comfortable with that number, but then we add in growth from tuition in, growth through Sherman students, and then potentially other sources of growth, which I'm sure you're going to be getting into from a state level, a regional Danbury level. At some point, would we get to a concern that you might have in terms of, do we need to start hiring more staff?
I think the controlled growth, we currently budget for our residents and we budget for the Agriscience program. We budget for Sherman coming in. But as far as other students taking advantage of our school system, it's because we have the opportunities to provide for them. At some point when we cannot provide the opportunities, we do not put forth the opportunities. I know that with Danbury, there's the open choice consideration that would be there. And I think as a board, we really need to have a conversation of what do we want our growth model to look like and how do we want to grow and expand our schools. But I think the more that we can control our growth, it's the sudden explosion of growth that would cause those spikes in budgets.
Right.
But if we can control and stabilize, we can certainly find that proper balance of how we're providing for the education of the students in Region 12. And it is once that I'm going to say, once they're in Region 12, we consider them our kids.
Well, and certainly we historically, we've had more students than we currently have now. And we were successful then. I'm sure we could be successful in the future.
Greg, you're muted. You wanna?
On that same theme, I think one of the things that people tend to forget is that when we bring in students from other schools and from other districts and from other towns, that it increases. It creates kind of a diversity of views. It creates the kind of atmosphere of a lot of kids coming into our schools who want to be here. They're not here because it's where they go to school. They're here because they want to be going to school at Chippewa. And I think that creates a situation that is, I think, going to stand us in good stead in the years ahead. Megan, you and I talked about my desire that we have the best school in the state of Connecticut. You've already brought us within the top 25, and I think we're well on our way. And it sounds like, once again, we are a desirable place to come. And I think if you keep that up, that we will be the best educational alternative for anyone in the state of Connecticut. And I think that's a fine thing to do. And I think you've put us on the trajectory to get there. So thank you very much. Now, getting back to the budget.
Excuse me, Greg.
Jim, I'm sorry. I forgot your hand. Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on those questions and ask Megan if you've thought long-term about it. I don't know if you and Nicole have. Do you envision that there may be a time where hiring additional staff for the Agriscience program will be of benefit and will not be a negative financially, but will actually pay for itself as things are starting to do now? In other words, do you foresee that could happen? Come to us recommending the hiring of additional staff.
I would say that if we were able to work with our sending towns and increase the amounts that are being sent, yes, I do see that as a potential.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one thing I recall is that one of the concern we had about extra staff was that if we were actually causing our principal school staff, not Agriscience, because adding a teacher, even adding 2 is not the end of the world. But if it results in having to add 20 people at the high school as a result of that, in other areas, non-ag science subjects, that would be the thing that would make it economically undesirable. But it sounds like you still have plenty of room there to continue to grow the ag science program in a controlled way. So am I wrong? Did I miss something?
Nope, I think you had it.
Okay, very good. So now, at this point, can we move on to the budget? Is there any discussion of the budget?
Greg, Alex McNaughton.
Yes, Alex. Go ahead.
For a lot of us, for a lot of the board, they have not seen this information till tonight or this weekend. And we are not really going to decide on anything until the 22nd. I, who spent some serious time digging through the weeds, still have more digging to do. You know, I would not try to get into the nitty-gritty of the budget tonight until everybody on the board's had a chance to review it, so everybody has got a good education in front of them. So, you know, I would suggest that we not get into line items tonight. Overall views of growth of the program and all is something different than that. But anyway, that's just my thought.
Okay. Jim.
Alex, would you consider approving the budget tonight as proposed? It's a low number and whatever it is.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I've got comments and questions that I want to bring up, but I think it's for me to bring them up tonight without you guys having had a chance to look at it isn't really fair.
No, it's fine. You're right. Okay.
All right. Does anyone else have any thoughts, ideas, or John?
I agree with Alex. It's too premature to reach a decision tonight. I do want to clarify a couple of things, however. I understand that where the repairs for the elementary school are coming, with the exception of the Burnham roof, the Burnham gutters, and the smoke detectors at Chappaq. So the elementary school repairs are coming out of the elementary school fund, correct? Okay. So, but the 450,000 for the roof, the gutters, and the smoke detectors, that's going right into the 2021, 2022 budget?
That's correct, yes.
I would recommend that we take some of that money out of the capital reserve fund, the 1% fund. I don't want to see, you know, we're going to have almost $1.25 million in the capital reserve fund. I don't know why we can't use that to at least do the gutters and the roof and the smoke detectors.
Does anybody know where we stand on the moving up to 2% like the other school districts? Is that, you know?
Yeah, that I know is going before the legislator, but I don't know where we are on that. It should be, Greg has said it beautifully, it should be a Scribner's error. They should pull regional school districts on it. So we're lost in the shuffle until the legislative system.
I think we have to get our state rep and our state senator, Eric Berthel, on the case. I think
Yeah, I haven't seen any reference to it anywhere that I've looked.
Yeah, we really do need to get that bill moved because and the thing that makes no sense is it's not like this is something that's going to cost the state a nickel. I don't get it. I mean, it's literally and you should see some of the bills that they're spending time on. I mean, it's frightening. And I really think we need to get some push on this because this makes a big difference to school districts like ours who are able to put aside that money who have absolute needs because our buildings are so old. Anyway, I don't know what we can do to move that along.
In a way, it's good. Even if they approve it, it's still not going to be in time for, the 2021, 2022 budget. So I would,
actually
recommend that.
It might be 2021, 22, but it won't help us this year. Put aside more at the end of this year if we don't get the thing passed pretty quickly. So I suggest anyone who has any contacts in the legislature to avail yourself of them and to contact our rep and our state senator and let them know that this is important to us and it doesn't cost them anything. This is an easy bill for the legislature to pass. It's to correct an error, a gross error that they made 2 years ago now. 2 years they haven't corrected it. I know they've got priorities in Hartford, and I know the pandemic is not easy for everyone, but this is something that can help. If they want to help elementary, and high schools and middle schools in the state, this is the way to do it. Anyway, okay, so it sounds like we don't have a lot of discussion on the budget tonight.
Could I take a straw poll of the board to see how they feel about using the $450,000, taking the $450,000 out of our capital reserve and using it to do the Burnham School roof?
Well, John, I don't know about a straw poll because you need to discuss it. For example, you've said that this makes sense, but on the other hand, I'd like to hear from Nicole at some point to tell us, because she told us last time we looked at the issue of our bond rating, one of the major factors for the bond rating companies was that we had $1 million in the bank and that we had a lot of reserves against which we could, so that if we were to borrow money, we were less of a risk because we had a large pool of money to tap in the event we had unexpected expenses. So I think we need to evaluate that. We need to see whether or not cutting it down by $300,000 or $400,000 is going to hurt that effort. Right now we're facing a situation in which the bonding agencies wanted to reduce the maximum bond rating for every regional school district in the state over an issue that they felt because we didn't have taxing power. We don't have the power to impose taxes. We have to go to the residents and ask them to approve taxes. And so they've sort of slowed that down a little bit, but I don't want to give them another excuse. So I think it's not that I say we have to go that way. I'm just saying there's a countervailing argument that we need to consider carefully. And I think rather than taking a straw poll, we might be better off waiting until we could tee this up with the presentation of both sides of it. I agree with you. When it's appropriate, we should go to the 1% fund, hopefully one day 2% fund. But I think there's a countervailing argument we need to consider. So a straw poll would be either one that was not informed by debate or one that sort of strokes the preconceived notions that we might have, our priors.
We just heard the debate.
Okay.
People are entitled to hear more if they want. We can debate it all night.
Well, when you consider the bond rating, what is carrying an $11.5 million bonding going to do for our rating? I don't know.
Well, hold on.
Have the money in the bank.
Isn't the issue what Nicole recommends? Have her explain it to us why they're doing what they're doing?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Nicole. That's one of the things I said.
Yeah, so we discussed this in the Finance and Operations Committee as well. And, I feel very strongly about my position, which is completely opposed to John's position. Right now, we can borrow money at a very low rate, and using the capital reserve fund for any part of the $3 million ban or the elementary repairs is short-sighted. We should keep those reserves. It's the only source of reserves we have. It does bolster our bond borrowing rating, which is under review. I have a meeting with Moody's on Thursday. Greg is absolutely right. They're looking to downgrade all regional school districts. That reserve has helped us in the past. It will continue to help us. Carrying debt does not negatively affect your bond rating. Carrying debt that you don't pay for negatively affects your bond rating, just like your credit rating. I think that the budget that we brought in at 1.64%, the fact that we can build those necessary elementary repairs into that budget is actually a win for the district, because when you add those kinds of repairs, those repairs that we're asking for are less than the total increase to our towns. And that's work that we know needs to be done, and it's work that we have kicked the can down the road on. So the fact that we can bring in a 1.64% budget with those repairs built in, I don't know how you argue against that. And I don't think we're draining our capital reserve fund now, when we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates, we don't know what's going to happen with the continued effects of the pandemic, is a really fiscally irresponsible move.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait,
Mary.
wait. The only concern I have is that the roof, the big bill for the roof at Burnham is going to make this budget go down. I've heard from people that I would have never expected last year when we talked about having the roof at Burnham, and they will, and people that I would have never expected said, well, I'm not going to vote yes for that. So that's that's the only thing that when I went through the budget, when I went through the whole thing today, I went, oh, this is a little scary for me, because I know how people feel in Washington. So that's maybe one of the reasons why we should consider doing it out of the 1% fund. But that's just what I've perceived from the people in Washington.
Well,
Mary, do you know what percentage of the voters in Washington feel that way? Have any idea?
No,
What do you
I
believe?
have no idea, but I was worried about it last year, and I'm a little worried about it this year when people.
You believe it's more than 50% of the Washington voters?
It could possibly be.
Really? Wow. I wouldn't think that.
I don't know for sure, but
But I don't know either.
people that I would have never expected for that to come out of their mouth said that when I talked about it.
Yeah, but how many people are you talking about? Did you talk to?
Oh no, this was when I brought it up to another committee
Oh, okay.
but I would have never expected these particular people to have any negative effect. It would have never expected that. So, and I'm thinking if they feel that way, how are some other people going to feel about it? So that's I just want to, that may be something we must look at.
I don't doubt for a second that it actually exists. Excuse me. I don't doubt for a second that it actually exists, but I just didn't know the percentage of what we're talking about.
Nicole?
If what Mary is stating is a real concern for the board, then I think what the board should consider is removing the roof from the budget and coming back at it in next year's budget. I don't think this should be an either or of keeping it in the budget or using capital reserve. I think the capital reserve should stay off of the table. And perhaps we take, or if the board felt very strongly that they needed to bring the budget down from the 1.64%, think about subsidizing part of it from the capital reserve, but leaving part of it in the operating budget. I mean, we own the upkeep of these buildings, and it needs to be done. And depleting our capital reserve to do it is not, in this environment, is not the right answer.
John?
There were years when we didn't even have $500,000 in the capital reserve. If you take that 450 off of the top of the capital reserve, you're still going to have $750,000 in there. Why Why put it on the back of the taxpayers when you have the money in the bank?
She's saying, John, because it affects our ability to borrow. It affects bond decisions.
What is our borrowing? What is our borrowing concern?
Over $1 million is better. She doesn't know what the environment is. She doesn't know what's going to be happening. And we have $1 million in the bank. That's good. That's something. So she doesn't want to blow that.
I mean, John, another option open to us is to simply throw it into the bond. You know, if you could bond it, if we're concerned about the cost of carrying the debt, because it's going to be a lot cheaper. I mean, there are bonds going out there recently that were under 1%. So if we happen to hit it at 0.9 or 1.1, I mean, you know, it's still cheaper than taking it out of the 1% fund, because at some point in time you do earn some money on those funds. But look, I don't know that we have a decision tonight. But the other thing, Mary makes an important point, which is that it's very important for us when we're in groups like this to educate people as to why we do things the way we do them. I mean, we don't do them because we're out of ideas. We do them because it makes financial sense to do it. And the problem is, if people treat public finance the same way they treat their own home finance, it doesn't work that way. It's a different enchilada. And I think people need to focus and learn about how, you know, you run one of these things, because what we're trying to do, we're looking not just at next year's budget, we're looking at the long term. And how do we keep costs within a relatively affordable rate? And if you look at the last 10, 12 years, this board has pretty much had tax increases, or I should say increases in our budget, because it doesn't directly go to tax increases. But we've had increases in our budget over the last 12 years, probably around 6.5% over 12 years. That's not very much. I defy people to do that well. So I think that we've tried to manage it carefully, and sometimes we have to spend money. And I think that's an indication. Mary, you had a question. I'm sorry.
No, I just thinking maybe we have to try it out and see if it'll pass. And if it doesn't, then we can look at other options. But that's, you know, that's when we go for a real decision on the budget, that's something that we can talk about more.
And if we fail to educate people before our quiet period, shame on us.
Right.
I just want to say, and I think there have been great efforts and great successes to see ourselves as a united 3 towns when it comes to schools. And I get very distressed when we start thinking that Washington's not going to support Bridgewater, you know, and how that's going to parcel itself out. It's about care for our entire school district. And I just, again, I've been incredibly impressed watching how our 3 communities have unified behind our schools. And I hope we can educate them as how that support happens in the structure that it is. So it's not asking Washington to take on the burden of Bridgewater or not caring for what's happening with the roof in Burnham School, but it's about caring for our entire school district. And I just needed to say that.
John.
I need to second that. I mean, when you look at this budget, almost every department had a reduction. Burnham School alone had I think it was an 8% lower than last year's budget. So, you know, kudos to all those involved in reducing, you know, their department's budgets. But I still think, you know, and if Mary is correct, it would even go further to, you know, to not include that $450,000 into the budget. But we'll have to see. I mean, I'd be willing to, you know, let the people decide.
Pete, you're muted. Pete, you're muted. Pete.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you repeat what you said? We didn't hear any of it.
Okay. Well, tonight was the presentation I don't look at this as the decision-making night tonight. I presume we're going to have another meeting. We've had time to digest all of this, and we have another meeting, I presume, and we'll discuss the budget and how people feel and what maybe public reaction is. They get to see this. I don't know how it's going to be published or sent to the towns. I'm not sure if the newspapers are going to, or Megan's going to offer this to the newspapers, the New Milford Times, the Waterbury Republican, to get that into the paper so people in the 3 towns can see what's going on. But I would presume we're going to have another meeting to make a final decision on what we're going out with. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's good that people bring it up tonight, but I don't see tonight as a real important meeting. It's the presentation of the facts, and then we'll deal with them at the next meeting, correct?
Next meeting's on the 22nd.
Right. So I
Yes.
presume that's what everybody would want to do.
Okay, Jen?
I just wanted to say that I think that Nicole has done an amazing job since she has joined Region 12, and I value her opinion greatly, and I appreciate her input tonight. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jen. Is there anyone else who wants to comment on this? The only thing I wanted to add in passing is we've spent a lot of time tonight and then the last several meetings talking about Chippewa, because we've got a lot of projects going on there, and there's been construction, there's programming changes, there's all kinds of things going on in Chippewa. But one time we tend to forget sometimes that we have 3 stellar elementary schools. These are schools that our kids start their educational experience there, and this sets them up for success at Chippewa. And so we can't stint on making sure our schools are welcoming and beautifully done facilities. And I think that's extremely important, because what the work that's being done there is the key to the success academically at Chippewa, and then later when they leave our district and go on to either higher education, the workforce, or vocational training. So I just didn't want to forget that, because sometimes I think we do, and sometimes I think I do, but it's still on my mind, and I think it's important. Okay.
May I
Mary.
just ask one more question of Megan? Megan, is it okay if I put the budget packet that you put out? May I put that on Facebook? May I put that on my site?
That is your choice. I can tell you that at this point, it is a public document. It is open. It's on our website for anybody to review. To say the next board meeting is where we expect people to review what we have, put it out there, come ask questions, and that is where the board will consider what they want to adopt as their board budget. But for right now, this is the superintendent's budget, and you are welcome to have anyone who would like to consume, see, or share it. It is yours to do that.
Okay, because some of the PTO people have asked me to share it with them too when it came out. So I will do that.
Jen?
Just,
But I didn't
and this
do
is
that.
my 2 cents, and Mary, take it or leave it. I always get nervous sharing things on Facebook, because if you want to share it with the PTO, the PTOs, and they can share it in a meeting or however, I just think that sometimes it allows for conversations to blow up and not necessarily have all the information present. I just always worry about that. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. All right. If there's no more discussion of the budget, then we have no
Greg, I have a
action.
question.
Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Greg, I have a question.
Yes.
I might have missed it, but when is the next date that we'll be discussing this before we go to the budget hearing?
22nd.
All right, is that because I don't see that on our list of meetings. So is that a regular meeting?
Should be. Let me look at that again, but yes, it should. Let me just make certain.
It just says that there's a curriculum and educational meeting.
That's true.
Oh, 29th. I'm sorry. I kept saying the 22nd. That was my fault. I gave Alex that little earworm. That was wrong, but it was mine. So it is the 29th.
I will
But
stop
isn't the
saying
29th the actual
22nd.
hearing?
Which is, and so we do there's the 2 meetings that we hold on that day. If-
Yeah, I think the 29th is the meeting at which we get the input from the
Yep.
public.
You have the budget hearing and then go to a regular meeting.
Then we go
So
to
we
a
don't
regular-
have another meeting between now and then to discuss
No.
this.
No, what Alex was saying was the 22nd is actually, I think, the 29th, but that's the same course of action. It's just the date that changed.
Okay.
Right, you have, yeah. To discuss it in full on the 29th, the board.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, is there anything else on the budget this evening? All right, I hear nothing, so we have no action items, so we'll move on. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss the paraprofessional memo of understanding?
So moved.
Let's move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Julie seconds. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I must have missed somebody. 11. Is that 12? Is it unanimous? I think so.
You make
Is there
12.
anyone opposed? Abstaining.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mary, what is your hand up for?
For yes, to go into.
Okay, no, I'm
executive.
now asking for opposed.
Oh, sorry.
Abstaining. I have to toggle back and forth between screens. I'm sorry. Okay, that's unanimous. So we have the 2/3 vote. We'll now go into executive
Greg?
session.
Greg,
Yes,
who are you inviting in, please?
we're inviting Megan in. Do you need anyone else?
Let's have Nicole come just for the beginning and we can excuse her.
Okay. Is there anyone else you need in the meeting? Kim, are you indicating something?
I think she's
Kim, you're-
frozen.
You're
No,
muted.
she's muted.
I was just about to hit the leave button.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.